It's been just over 2 years ago now where the son of missing construction worker Steve Hossington had also gone missing. His name was Jeffrey Hossington, and shortly after, the lead detective on his case, Detective Harold Lucken, also went missing. Because of the mysterious circumstances surrounding this case, it has laid dormant this entire time until just the other day. We have been informed that a junior detective by the name of Carly Sampson has taken up the case, being supervised by new lead detective Alan Sutt. The incessant alarm had the gall to blare out at this time, waking up the half-asleep junior detective. Today was her first day on this case. She wanted to find her friend Jeffrey, as well as the detective that tried to help her in the past. That's the entire reason why she decided to go to the police academy. It took 2 years and she just barely passed her exams before finally landing a job as a junior detective for her town. It was like the universe wanted to give her a chance. As she'll soon realise though, none of this would be easy. Carly slithered out of bed, slapping her phone to shut her alarm off. It was 6 a.m, a time that she will probably never really get used to. She rose to her feet, let out a loud sigh, yawned, stretches her entire body upwards as far as she could go, then slumped back down on her bed. Defeated by the early hours of the morning, she got back into bed, only to be interrupted by a call on her smartphone. She picks it up. "Yes, detective. I'm getting up right now. Stop worrying." She spoke in a sarcastic tone. "Come on, Carly. I know you better than that by now. Get off your lazy ass, have some breakfast, and get down to the station as soon as possible. We've got a big day ahead of us." With this encouragement, Carly replied with a resounding, "Yes, sir, I'll be there at 7, just as promised." She hung up the phone and staggered towards her wardrobe, looking for her work attire. She stripped down, got dressed, and yawned all the way to the bathroom, where she proceeded to brush her teeth, wash her face, and take a couple of painkillers. Carly had been suffering from strange headaches almost every morning since Detective Harold went missing.
Ugh, I did this in the wrong order. I'm supposed to eat and then brush my teeth. Now everything's gonna taste awkward and minty. Ew. She sighed, dragged herself downstairs, and decided that a quick couple of croissants and a cup of tea would be all she needed. She'll soon realise that being a detective is hungry work. Ugh, it tastes so minty. Why do I do this to myself? Reluctantly finishing her breakfast, Carly does a few last things before heading to her car and driving off to her job. "Rollosia," whispered an unknown voice in her head. In confusion and fear, Carly almost swerved her car. "Rollosia? The hell is that all about?" Stupid head voices. This being said, nothing eventful happened for the rest of her journey to work. When she arrives, she parks, gets out, and enters the station. "Good morning, detective," the receptionist practically shouts in excitement. It's obvious that he likes her. "I wouldn't go that far, but thanks. Morning," she replies.
Finally, she gets to the detective's office and knocks on the door before she enters. Last time, she didn't knock and found Detective Allen playing soldiers with a couple of his pens. It was embarrassing to say the least. "You may enter," a stupid muffled voice yelled from behind the closed door. Carly enters. "Right, you're here and you're not late, so thank you and well done. Now, I've pulled up everything poor Detective Harold had on this case and thought that you could tell me if you know of anything else that isn't in these documents." In shock, Carly raises her voice at him. "You're gonna question me on the first day of this case being reopened? What the hell is wrong with you?" Oh dear, she's only gone and done it. she thinks. Look, it's a case that's personal to you and you've been questioned by Detective Harold already. But you two didn't exactly get much time together to talk about any of the finer details. It's all just the basics. I know you know more about this case than you're letting on. And if we want to get to the bottom of this mystery, you, young lady, are going to tell me everything from the beginning. By the way, did you have a big breakfast? We're not leaving this room or eating until I squeeze every last drop of information from you. Are we clear? Carly regrets not having a heavy breakfast, as this would go on past lunchtime. Carly explains the basics of the case and everything that she told Detective Harold, bar from a few tiny details she had forgotten about, but that stuff is all in the documents anyway. But then she moves on to how she went to visit the project manager for the Lost Out Trail, explaining that she'd been told of a demon that haunted the trees and about what might have really happened to the 3 missing people. Wait, you expect me to believe that some demon whose spirit was trapped inside of a tree that chopped down and turned into a book has somehow made 3 people vanish along with said book? I mean, that's the most ludicrous tale I have ever heard. Where's your evidence? I love a good horror story. Completely taken aback, the young detective speaks to confirm what she's hearing. You believe me? She's dumbfounded at his reaction. I mean, I won't really believe it until you show me your evidence on this, but I'm oddly superstitious and would love to believe in something as crazy as this. Of course, no one else will really believe it, but we can make up whatever we want once we get the real mystery solved. It's not the nicest thing to do to the families of the missing, to lie and deceive them instead of telling them the truth. But what can you do? I doubt any of them will ever take the police seriously if they're telling them that their son, husband, whatever, was taken away by a possessed book. Agreeing with everything that Detective Allen was saying, she goes to speak, but her mind is played once more by that word, Rollosia. This time it was louder, as if it was getting closer to her somehow. She shakes her head, sighs, and finally goes to speak. Right, the first stop for my evidence would be to talk to Mr. Peter Dincliffe, and so you can make sure my story checks out. After that, we need to track down a couple of the other workers to make sure his story checks out. I'm thinking one of the tree fellas that worked with him and that security guard lady. I think her name might have been Lucy something or other. Listen, detective, I'm sorry I didn't tell Detective Harold everything, but I doubt he would have believed me if I had told him. Even so, like he said, I found all this stuff out after he first questioned me, so I wouldn't have really had much of a convenient time to explain things to him, even if I thought he would believe me. It's okay. What's important now is that you've told me everything, and now we have no lies or secrets in the way. We can track these people down, do a little bit of investigating into their stories, and then we can take things from there. If this book really is possessed, then it's dangerous and we need to find it as soon as possible. There's no telling how many people it might have taken by now. With that being said, they both left the office, got into the young detective's car and drove off. First stop, Mr. Peter Dincliffe. She had texted him beforehand, letting him know that they were stopping by to confirm the story. The trip there was surprisingly quiet. Carly was surprised by this since Detective Allen is always so chatty. Maybe he knows more about this sort of stuff than Carly does. Maybe he's a bit more than just oddly superstitious. They arrive at their destination and enter the Dincliffe construction building, greeted by the receptionist, the detectives are given a waiting time of 5 minutes while Mr. Dincliffe finishes off a phone call with a client. After a wait of around 10 minutes instead of 5, Peter Dincliffe himself appears before the two detectives. Pleasure to see you again, Miss Sampson, and it's an honour to meet you as well, Mr. Other Detective Person. A little bothered by this, Alan speaks. Detective Alan's son. Nice to meet you, sir. Are you okay to just confirm some of your comments on the case regarding missing father and son Stephen and Jeffrey Hossington? Taken a little aback by her formal and professional manner, Peter speaks up. Yeah, that's fine. Come into my office and we can have a chat there about it. Away from all the prying ears. They like a good gossip in here. He laughs nervously. It's never fun to have to speak to a detective about your missing friend. It doesn't take long for Detective Allen to figure out that Carly's story has checked out, since pretty much everything that Peter has been telling him and Carly is the same stuff that Carly had previously told her superior. Well, I think I've heard enough. Thank you ever so much, Mr. Dincliffe. We'll let you know if we get any new leads in this case. Carly's story checks out, but now I need to find out if your story checks out. I'm not too convinced of this superstitious stuff, but it's our only lead right now. Carly was confused. Why was he contradicting himself from earlier about how superstitious he was? Then she heard it again. Rollosia. Again, it seemed louder than it was before. Not by much, it was more like a distant whisper now, instead of a faint and distant whisper. Then her headache from this morning came back. She could do with a couple of painkillers and something to eat. Sir, not to be rude, but I'm starving. All I had was a couple of croissants this morning, and it's already 1:30 in the afternoon. Can we please just get something to eat before we go hunting down that security guard? Feeling his stomach growl, Detective Allen agrees. Right, yep, let's just get a burger or something, my treat. Since it's my fault, he mutters under his breath. And then we'll go to see that Lucy person. That okay? Nodding like an excited 8-year-old finding out they're going to a theme park in the morning, Carly hurries the detective into her car and gets in herself. Burger pit stop, here we come. The rest of the day was mostly uneventful. They were quickly able to locate and speak to Lucy, and one of the tree fellas that worked alongside Steve Hossington, and confirmed each of their stories with that Lucy had previously told Detective Allen. So they return to the station to go over all their current and new information. Okay, so that's everything we know so far. Do you have any ideas on where else we could look for information? I can think of one really good one, but I want to see if you have come up with it too, Ellen says, testing the young detective. We could go down to the library and look online at these stories they were talking about. You know, the ones about the lost out forest where the demon was said to come from and eat villagers. What if that book ate the missing people? With a wry smile on his face, Alan congratulated the young detective with a resounding exactly. That's what I wanted to hear. Great minds think alike. Tell you what, I'll go down to the library because I like me a good horror story, and you can check online, see if there's anything you can find out about this demon in that forest. Unless you find something really important, I think we can afford to call it a day and meet back here tomorrow. I'm supposed to be going out for a meal with the wife and our little boy tonight. After that, the two go their separate ways for the rest of the day. Once home, Carly pours herself a glass of whiskey, orders herself a pizza, and sets up a laptop. I've already gotten so much nothing when researching this. I might as well just look through my documents so far and see if there's anything I'm missing and then take it from there. Carly looked through her notes. Some folk tales about a creature that came from the forest and ate nearby villagers once every 2 years. Some of these folk tales say the villagers were abducted instead of eaten. Who knows what that thing really did with its victims. The one thing she hasn't really found is any evidence of this creature really existing. Where it came from, what it looked like, other than that it being a demon of unimaginable cruelty, or even what its name could have been. If lesser demons even had names like humans, she also hasn't seen any folk tales or stories based on the legend after the mid-1800s. There's just so much nothing here. I need to find something concrete or up to date, but there just isn't anything. Carly opens up a web browser and types in the obvious "lost out." She scrolls through page after page, not coming across any new information. Then the voice in her head speaks again. Rollosia. This time it was a close whisper, like it was only a foot away from her face. Straight after that, there was a loud knock at her door. "Eep!" Carly squealed and rushed to the door. Moments later, she walks back into her living room with a hunger in her eyes as she opens her pizza box. It's hot, fresh, and full of Italian sausage and pepperoni. Ah, yes, pizza, glorious pizza. She tried to pick up a slice, but instantly puts it back down. That's bloody hot. Carly closed her pizza box and puts it down on her coffee table to cool down for a moment, while she goes and pours herself another whiskey. She's not really supposed to be drinking when she has work early in the morning, but it helps her to focus and come up with more interesting ideas. Taking a break from all the research, Carly begins eating her pizza. She wonders to herself what kind of pizza that Jeffrey would have liked. She never got to ask him. Maybe he'd like something more classical, like mushrooms and pepperoni, or ham with extra mozzarella. I don't see him liking pineapple on pizza, but I guess I'll never know. He's not coming back, is he? She ponders this for a moment, then takes a swig of her whiskey, then sighs. Slowly but surely, she finishes eating her pizza. She eats slower when she's really depressed. It's a unique habit of hers. She takes a box in the kitchen and returned to her laptop. Right, she thought, I need to figure out what this Rollosia thing is. It's gonna start driving me crazy if I keep hearing it in my head. She opened up her browser and types in Rollosia. Not much came up. Only a few things were actually relevant. The rest of the results were all about rolling Asia and rolling in Asia, etc. She clicked on the first results that read Rollosia, real or folk story. Great, she thought. The website opened up. It was one of those really old, early 90s sort of websites. It was actually an old blog post on a website about supernatural entities. She read parts of the blog post out loud. Rollosia is said to be an ancient curse. There has only ever been a few accounts of it happening in the ancient past. It's connected to black magic and the demon world. No one knows if it's real or not, but that's what I want to discuss in my blog today. Carly starts to worry. Wait, am I cursed or something? What does this curse even do? She reads on. It has been said that someone inflicted by this curse hears a voice in their head. It says Rollosia louder and louder. Some people say that once it turns into a shout, the inflicted disappear, or the heads explode. No one knows for sure. Carly panics. Oh well, that's lovely, I'm gonna die, aren't I? I am cursed, what the hell? Did the bloody demon do this to me? She reads once more, finishing the blog post. There isn't much evidence to go on, but in my research I have discovered that it seems to be only inflicted on women and only activates around 2 years after coming across a demon. I hope you enjoyed this little insight into this Rollosia curse thing. It's most likely a bunch of nonsense to scare women into staying away from men who are a bit out of the ordinary. If you think you're cursed, you should probably seek one of those people who do exorcisms. Completely gobsmacked by this, Carly pours herself another whiskey and then downs it. She may be afraid for her life, but she's not a savage. Even she won't drink straight from a bottle like most would do in this situation. After her whiskey, she pulls herself together and starts a bit of side research into some trustworthy exorcism services, including local churches, cathedrals, and other religious societies that claim they can vanquish evil spirits and remove deadly curses, so one website said. She gets a list of numbers, writes them down, and plans to call them tomorrow if this Rollosia thing got any worse. She then backs out of the exorcism services and the blog post, then clicks on the only other result that popped up in her search for Rollosia. The website looks a bit younger, probably early 2000s, however the page gives Carly a choice and a question. Do you have Rollosia? With the options of yes and no. Carly clicks on the yes button and the page goes back to that original blog post she was just reading. In frustration, Carly shuts off her laptop and decides to call it a night. Shortly after doing this, she hears it again, Rollosia. The voice in her head turned louder. This time it sounded like it was right in her ear, a loud whisper. She shook her head and got ready for bed. She wasn't going to deal with this anymore. As soon as she talks to the detective, she will call one of those numbers to try and find a way to get rid of the curse. While asleep, Carly has a nightmare. The voice returned with several versions of itself, all chanting Rollosia at varying volumes. Some were whispers, some were speaking volume, and some were shouting. As for the sights, it was a pitch black nightmare, until she saw herself surrounded by light orange flames. There was also a giant head made up of light orange and black flames. It was some manifestation of that voice that she was hearing in her head. This time when it spoke, it sounded like it was speaking in a normal volume. Rollosia was once again spoken by this voice. It's possible that she had just one Rollosia left before she either disappeared or her head blew up. In fear, Carly suddenly jolted out of her dream and woke up. It was only a few minutes before her alarm was going to go off, so she decided to cancel her alarm and get up. With this possibly being her last day, she frantically wrote a note about everything that was going on with her. Then wrote another note to her family and friends, telling them how much she loved them all, and then she rushed to clean her teeth, get dressed, and have a breakfast. She wasn't going to mess around today. She needed help. She rang several other numbers she found on the internet, and only one of them agreed to come and help her remove the curse. But he wouldn't be able to come until 11 PM, so she agreed to meet him at the police station. She didn't care too much about how it might look to other people. She didn't want to end up dead before completing her mission to find Jeffrey and Detective Harold. Grabbing her laptop, Carly quickly got out of her house, locked it, and ran for her car. That's when she heard it again. Rollosia. This time it was an aggressive tone. Not quite a shout, so she has some time yet. She set her car into the highest gear and floored it all the way to the police station in hopes to explain to Detective Allen everything that she found out and everything that was happening to her. Once there, she rushed into the building with her laptop. Instead of letting the awkward receptionist speak to her, she rushed straight past him and went straight into Detective Allen's office. While waiting for Allen, she sets up her laptop and paces around. She can hear the detective talking just outside the door. Sounds like the receptionist is telling him that I rushed in here. Just as Alan put his hand on the door handle, Carly heard the voice once again. Rollosia. This time it was a shout. Not just any shout, but more like an aggressive roar. This was it, the end of her journey. She failed her mission. Alan opened the door only to find no one was in the office. Only Carly's laptop. What happened after this, you may be wondering? Well, it's simple really. An investigation was done to the disappearance of Carly, but no concrete evidence really showed itself apart from the notes she left and the data on a laptop about the lost out case. It was eventually turned into a cold case, and to this day, the case remains dormant. Even Detective Allen has abandoned it. Huh? What the hell? Where am I? The last thing I remember was hearing that stupid voice again. Wait, am I dead? The voice appears to Carly once more. Your wild and frantic emotions. This mission of yours to save your friends. This is why I chose you. I have fed on your very existence. Thanks to the three of you, I have now gained enough power to escape this useless world. I need stronger emotions, stronger energy. I need more power. The voice laughs, unable to see, hear, feel, smell, move or speak. Carly fades into nothingness.